I had for breakfast, I had peanut butter and jelly burrito.
Really?
What goes into a peanut butter and jelly burrito?
It's peanut butter and jelly wrapped up in a tortilla. You eat it that way.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty good.
Tortilla, burrito. Okay.
Beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes. Beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes. Beans, creams, potatoes, creams, beans, 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 creams, potatoes, tomatoes. Chicken, beans, creams, potatoes, tomatoes. Chicken. You name it. You name it. You name it. You name it.
Welcome to Generation Savage. India is not here because she's lazy.
She's sick.
Lazy. But yeah, she's sick. She's sick. But I have two people to fill her one spot. So introduce yourselves.
I'm Jordy.
Okay.
And I'm Frank.
All right. So are you ready?
I'm ready. I actually don't know if I'm ready because I'm not really sure what's going to be expected of me, but I'm ready for anything.
Okay, so our show is just like one time. It's like Generation Savage is now turned into this one topic based show. So our one topic is climbing the ladders of life.
Yes.
So it's really like we can go anywhere with this.
Okay.
It's pretty vague this week. You know, last week was throwback TV shows. The week before that was celebrity baby names. So this is a little more kind of vast.
Next week is babies climbing the celebrity ladders of TV shows.
Probably.
Okay.
So let's start with. Let me think. Also, this show is very not professional, so I'm just letting you know.
So Johnny, when you chose the topic, what did you have in mind? What did you when that term?
You want me to be really honest?
Yeah.
Because this is what we do at Generation Savage. Yeah. So I asked Jordy. I texted Jordy maybe like at 12.
Yep.
And I was like, I need someone to like. Would you like to like have your Generation Savage debut?
This is my debut.
So yeah, and Frank.
That's mine too.
Oh
wow.
Shoot! Oh my God.
Wow.
This is a party after we do this recording to celebrate.
Right. So I was telling Jordy climbing the ladders of life, and then he was like, no, climbing the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
It was a corporate ladder, and then he was like, we'll talk about that later. And then I come to CCTV, we talk about it, and he had too many questions, so I was like, let's just open it up to like the ladders in life, because we can go a lot more places with that.
Well, I haven't ever climbed a corporate ladder.
Right.
I don't really.
Well, I thought you did the youth media project,
at CCTV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been here for a really long time.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, you did climb some way up here. Like, now you run the...
that is true. I am the coordinator of the program that I was once a participant in.
Which...
is climbing a ladder of life.
Right.
In life.
I kind of feel like I sort of like fell up the ladder, you know?
So talk to us. Tell us a little bit about your story.
My story. Well,
Tell me a little bit about your story, Jordy.
Here's why I feel like I haven't climbed any corporate ladders. Is I've been like really intentional in my life to not like work in a corporate environment. So the places that I've worked since graduating from college have all been focused on working with people and community based, and I've done a lot of work, as a freelance video producer and things like that. But that's as, you're independent at that point. So you are your own boss, and you work for other people. But it's not the same as like, I was the comparison I made for Johnny was like, starting as a janitor and being the CEO and by the end of your career.
So Jordy, you started out, you entered CCTV, Cambridge Community Television, when you were just a wee lad. How old were you?
I was 16.
And had you had any video production experience?
A little bit.
Uh-huh. And so CCTV taught you how to make media in a more professional manner?
Yeah.
And so you were 16, and then you went on to go to college.
Yes.
And you studied video.
Yes.
And tell us, then you returned from college.
Yes, correct.
And what happened so you got your degree?
I got my degree. During college, I was teaching here in the summer program as a teaching artist, and then I got my degree, and I went and worked at a high school, and was teaching a bunch of different things. And then I left that position and ended up coming back for a summer at CCTV, and it was just good timing. And the current coordinator, or the previous coordinator of the program, was moving on to a fellowship position at a local college, and so there was a need, and I applied, and I stepped in, and I've been here for like 3.5 years.
Wow, that's pretty good. That is definitely a climb.
Somewhat. Yeah.
But then there's more. And so there was a question that we had earlier.
You climbed, you moved to a different ladder.
Yeah, there's a few ladders involved. I mean, there's like the ladder of life, like, right? Like we're saying, climbing the ladder of life. Ladder of life is more of like a scaffolding, maybe, and it's like comprised of many ladders and chutes and sort of like.
The episode of this, the name of this episode is definitely going to be called Chutes and Ladders.
Oh, for sure. Which is a great game, by the way.
Which is a really amazing
to this day. And
people
what's
don't play that enough anymore.
But I think life has ladders and chutes, and it has traverses. You know, like you have to walk across. You sometimes you don't feel like you're making progress, even though you're moving. I mean, these are great analogies.
And Johnny, what about you?
Yeah, what ladders are you climbing?
What ladders am I? I'm climbing the very long ladder of childhood. The horrible, especially like my ladder is like very broken.
So actually, I think this is interesting to point out. So let's talk about ages real quick. So Johnny, you're 17.
I'm 17.
And
I started working here when I was 16.
Okay.
But I could have started working here when I was 14 going into 15. Okay. But no. 15 going into 16. I had summer school. So
yeah, he actually showed up for the first day of work and then spent about enough time for us to be like, wow, this kid's really cool. And then he left us.
I know. So, it was a very sad day.
Yeah, definitely. So you're 17 now, and just real quick, 17. Jordy, how old?
I'm 27.
All right, and I'm 37.
This is perfect spread.
Yeah,
Whoa,
yeah. So a few generations
in the savage.
A lot of
generations of savage. Okay,
Johnny, are you a millennial technically?
No, I'm not.
He's post-millennial.
Yeah. What is the name for that?
I mean, there's like the I generation. There's the founders, because like apparently like the millennials and like the Generation X and all those other people like really ruined our planet.
Well, I would like to point out that I was not old enough to ruin our planet until recently, and so I blame my parents, or not my parents specifically, but
So it all, and I guess we're gonna figure that out more as we get older. What the official name is for our generation? Maybe it'll be Generation Savage at this point.
That's what I was gonna propose. I mean, do we get a petition going?
Yeah, I think so. Well, the generation that I'm from has had a few different names. So I grew up, and this is off topic, off the ladders, but it's a ladder.
Off the ladders.
Yeah. But I grew up being, all the teachers said, you guys are Generation X, you're part of Generation X. And then as I got older, people started not really sure, are we Generation X or millennials, which also Generation Y is another name for millennials. There's sort of this era from late 70s to early 80s that neither fully fits in with Generation X nor with millennials. So there's a couple different names that they're still trying to figure out what to call this micro generation. One is Xennials, which I'm not really a big fan of that term. The other, which I really like, is the Oregon Trail generation. So we were the first ones to
play the Oregon Trail on
Oregon
PC.
Trail on Apple SE2 computers, and we also paved the way. We were the ones that we didn't necessarily grow up with computers in our houses, but we were playing on computers at school, and so we were the first ones.
Apple was really big in like making sure like there was Apple computers in school.
Yeah, that was a big marketing thing for them.
Big thing for them. Yeah.
So we were the first ones to play computers in schools, and then the first teens to kind of have computers in our rooms, right?
AOL.
Yeah, AOL. So definitely that was like in the mid to late 90s, and I had AOL and was logging on, and this was a time when my parents were like, oh my gosh, isn't that scary talking to strangers? So we paved the way, much like an Oregon Trail, they paved the way. So we lived in both a world without these new technologies, as well as we were the first ones to use it and grasp of these technologies.
I think that's a really good name too. But my experience with the Oregon Trail, most people died of like typhoid fever or diphtheria. So I hope you guys have a better outcome.
Yeah, I hope so. I think we're also the forgotten generation too. So who knows? Maybe we
Yeah, no, I'm starting to feel
forgotten.
like that from like my generation because we're so close to millennials, but we're like going in this way where we're becoming independent. But I'm like very sad because I'm legit born in 2000.
You are, as far as I would understand the term, you are like the millennial, but I know that's not the right term for that age.
Right, and it's like because they're like, oh, you were born and you grew up like with like iPhones. It's like I remember the time like where there wasn't
an iPhone,
and there wasn't like they would still have like these chart phones and like flip phones,
the Nextels,
and
yes,
stuff.
the sidekicks.
Yeah. So I was like, I had a sidekick. Like,
how old were you when you got your first cell phone?
When I got my grandma was like super protective over me, so she gave me a cell phone like in first grade. So,
see, because I think that's like a really distinctive difference is between generations. Like Frank's talking about not having a computer at home, but having computers at school. And I remember the first computer that my parents had that we could all use to get on the internet. We had dial-up with AOL. And but cell phones, kids with cell phones is something that I think is like, for me, like it wasn't even an option. My mom got a Nokia, whatever, the little Nokia that you could play Snake on. I was like maybe in like 5th or 6th grade at that time already.
That was like the time I got like my first smartphone. It was like 5th, 6th grade.
Yeah, I don't even think smartphones existed until I was in high school. So I remember the first iPhones coming out. And maybe I was in 8th grade or something like that. But I'm pretty sure I was in high school already. I didn't get an iPhone until I was almost done with college. I think I had an iPhone my senior year of college, and I was a little late to the party. I got like an iPhone 4, and I had the NV, the whatever Samsung I think made it, a little flip out keyboard. But I have friends now whose kids are opening my phone and finding the apps that are games and playing them, and it's like these kids can't read. My friend's daughter, this was a few years ago, but when she was 2, she was on my phone just like taking pictures of stuff, and I was like, you don't even know how to tie your shoes, Zoe. What are you doing?
Look at our generation. A lot of older people look at our generation like that we grew up with this, like we just like I was like, well, like no, I was like, with my mom, like we had one computer in the house, and that was her computer. She was a graphic art designer. She passed away before like even the first iPhone came out. Like, so she was living in this time being a graphic art designer, not even with all the technology that we have today, which was crazy.
Back when you did it on paper.
Right, it was like paper, then like scan it, and then like it was like she had like this, and the number one rule was like, do not touch my computer.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, okay. I was like, and so I never touched a computer. Like, it was mainly, I was like the TV kid. I just like watched and consumed like a whole lot of TV. But that's really what it was. Like,
does your grandmother know how to text?
My grandmother, she uses the voice text.
Oh, okay.
And she means something very nice, and then it translates into something very harsh and mean, like cuss words end up in the middle of it, weird words.
Is that because she's like cussing at the phone while she's recording it?
It's like she says like, oh, just like come home, and then it'll be like, you cunt, like please come home.
Oh wow.
I'm like, oh okay, and I'm like, Grandma,
I don't know
like,
who taught Siri that kind of language.
Yeah, so
sometimes climbing a ladder of life is about like climbing those technology ladders that were
teaching my grandmother how to use an iPhone was a struggle. Like, she was using a Samsung phone and she thought that was so much easier, and it frustrated the hell out of me because iPhones, like iOS as an operating system, is just so much easier to learn than like a Samsung phone. But she just did not want to like transition over to like something that she thought was going to be harder, and I was just like, I can't wait until this phone dies. And it died. And I was like, I'm getting you an iPhone.
Didn't Obama keep his BlackBerry for like a really long time?
He was forced to because there was like some security measures like with the White House and stuff where he could only have, he probably had like an iPhone, but like his...
I thought he wanted to have the BlackBerry.
He probably did want to have
My
the BlackBerry
sister-
part way.
My sister bought like a bunch of used Blackberries online when they like stopped really making them because she refused to switch to an iPhone. And
BlackBerry
she's
is now making. They were bought by somebody else,
Yeah.
but they now are making. They're still making phones. They just came out with a smartphone like a couple of months ago, but it's like running Android, but has like a BlackBerry like launcher over it. So like it's really.
it looks like a familiar thing.
Yeah.
So Johnny, so I want to ask you. So we heard a little bit about Jordy's ladder that he climbed.
My ladder.
But so what about, so you're 17, you're a junior in high school, you're doing video production stuff here at CCTV, so what are your career and educational goals?
I mean, I think everyone knows, like, I want to be, like, a talk show host at some point, in any form of the aspect, or just, like, you know, really, like, a big, like, podcaster or whatever. Like, whatever, you know, makes me just, this is what makes me feel comfortable. Like, I don't have any problem, like, speaking or showing my opinion, as Jordy knows, that to have a...
I can attest to that.
So are you wanting to go to school for like broadcasting or what? Are you thinking?
I'm gonna. I was just telling Jordy this, just like maybe 30 minutes ago, just like saying, I want to like double major. So I want to go into psychology, but I also want to do broadcasting and like communications.
Yeah.
Just to do like my plan A and plan B at the same
Yeah,
time,
I think that's
and
important.
not like go back. So
A second or third. or
it's
fourth.
probably going to stress me out a little bit at school because I'm going to have like a lot like workload, but
Yeah.
you know, I'd rather do it like all at once than like do it and then be like, oh crap, this is not working. Okay, like I have to go back and get this stuff done.
One of the ways I think the ladders of life are really interesting too is that like you can be on one really specific and singular track, and you can in like the matter of a day just completely change your life and be on another track, and it's like, you know, all of that experience is really valuable and important, but giving yourself options I think is great, especially most people who I know that are really creative in you know, in ways of thinking and what they want to do and making things and stuff. They can't just do one thing, you know. It's like they need more than one outlet. So I think it's important to have that, like parallel tracks or parallel interests that you can be working really hard at mastering at the same time. Give yourself more of an outlet.
Yeah, I think that's
And
important.
like as young as I could think of, I always wanted to be an interior designer until I was like 10. So my plan was like, and I was also a dancer, so it was like, I'm gonna dance and then go to like this really artsy school and like dance to win my way in school and like with scholarships and grants and stuff, and then like get like a designing degree or whatever, and like, you know, fine arts or whatever, and become an interior designer. And then like my life changed like when I broke my ankle, which didn't stop me really from dancing. Like that was the big thing that I was like, oh, not do this. It was like the time that I was in bed on the cast, I was like, first couple of weeks you're like, yeah, cool, I'm just gonna stay up all night and watch TV and play video games and go to bed. But that gets like crazy after like 2 weeks, and you're like, I need some type of structure. So like talk shows were like something that made me like get up in the morning, and then like late night talk shows were like what was like the time for me to like go back to bed. Like so I had like some type of structure throughout the day, like to like something to look forward to and something to like go to bed to. So and I realized I was like, oh, I'm like actually liking this, and I was like, I can do this, and I like to share my opinion, and I like to do this, and I studied more into it, and then totally forgot about dancing and being an interior designer, and I just was like, oh, I want to become like a talk show host.
That was when you were 10?
No, that was like 14, so there was like this time period where I just like...
So which talk shows were your sort of go-tos? What ones are your inspiration?
I think my inspiration is, like my big goal is to have like a male view, but on late night television.
Whoa.
So... no one steal my idea.
Did you ever see The Man Show when that was on Spike?
No, I didn't.
It was not really a talk show. It's more of a variety show.
Yeah.
But it was a similar kind of vibe, I think. It was like some parts were like discussion-based, topical.
Yeah. So I really liked... I thought Ellen was really great, but Wendy was like the first one that came on, and then there was this new talk show coming on called The Real, and one of my favorite like people like on the planet, like as like a celebrity, is Tamar Braxton. She was like the token person. They fired her after 2 seasons, which was ridiculous. But those were like the talk shows that like I really liked. I enjoyed seeing Whoopi Goldberg kind of control the table at The View and tame everyone that was going like crazy, and she had these opinions, and if you liked them or you didn't, you know, you kind of had to respect them in some type of way. Same thing with Wendy Williams. She has these opinions, but she's putting a lot, like, you know, out there. You know, she's saying her opinion. Not everyone agrees with it, and it's kind of these crazy opinions, and people get mad at her and yell at her, but she's, at the end of the day, just doing her job. Then late night, I really like Kimmel. I really like Jimmy Kimmel. I like his sarcastic, like, sense of humor. It's funny. Chelsea Handler was like a really good one for me. Like, she had that same, like, I don't know, I really like.
Have you seen her Netflix stuff?
I like her Netflix show, which I know she's leaving, which is kind of disappointing.
Well, but I think talking about ladders,
Yeah.
she's a cool person to look at her career path because she's really been able to use her success to gain agency over what she's doing. And like, I'm not the biggest Chelsea Handler fan, but I do watch. I've watched her Netflix series. I watched Chelsea lately. I would tune into, you know, like very occasionally.
Yeah.
Or I had friends or roommates or my girlfriend watch it. My girlfriend watched it like religiously when it was on. But I think it's really great that Chelsea Handler's been able to turn herself into the thing rather than like it's not her show. It's like she is the brand, and so you know what you're going to get with her. It's not always, you know, what I want personally, but I don't know a lot of other celebrities who are able to have that much control over what kind of content they're putting out and the topics they want to choose to talk about.
Oprah was one. Right?
Well, Oprah's the pioneer, of course.
Oprah's the pioneer. She's like the best talk show host that can ever grace this planet.
Right.
Would you vote for Oprah in 2020?
Absolutely not. I'm so sorry. And I know it's going to be my first time voting, and I just don't want to vote. I'm sick of celebrities.
Do you think she's going to run?
I don't think. She says she's not going to run. If she does run, I'm not going to vote for her. If it comes down to, like, her and Trump, like, of course I'm going to, like, vote for her. But, you know, it's...
Yeah.
I just can't do it. I can't do it.
And, you know, I just have to say, so speaking of, again, ladders and Oprah and her career. So it was back in the day when there was Phil Donahue. He was the one who sort of set the precedent for what a modern talk show looks like. And he had his show for 20-plus years. And Oprah came around in the early 80s and kind of used the same format, but in her own style. And over time built an audience and, you know, ended up beating. I remember when she finally beat Donahue in the ratings, and it was a big deal that this black woman who came from a troubled background, who actually who wouldn't even have been a reporter had it not been. I had heard the story where a reporter had called out, and she was working there, and the producer put her on air. Yeah, and so she ended up going on the air as a fill-in reporter, and that pretty much launched her career. I mean, and
that's pretty crazy.
She had to work very hard, of course, and she had a lot of success over that time, eventually getting her own Oprah Winfrey Network.
And it was local for so many years.
Yeah, it was
which
AM Chicago.
Do they even do that anymore? Like local shows and like
local talk shows?
Yeah, like I feel like
there's
it's
public affairs type programming on these channels, but not in the same way.
TV has changed in a lot of ways.
Right.
It has stayed the same in a lot of ways, but like I don't see them do too much of like real local shows. Like the Oprah was like a serious local show before it went national. Like, it was like very like restricted, like to like kind of Midwest and like East Coast.
Well, I think television was the vehicle for communication on a different scale than it is now. And like TV is still a really, you know, a form of media that you can reach really broad audiences with. But if you're looking at producing something specific and local, the chances are you're not working with a budget that's going to get you onto network TV. And you know, we have the internet now, so you know you don't need to be putting it on TV.
There's like corporate YouTube channels now where people are getting full on like paychecks from doing, you know, stuff off of like there's like the Complex magazine. They like put all their content on YouTube, and they have like these like talk shows and stuff now. On there. Yeah, they have like this one called like the Everyday Struggle that's more like based around hip hop and I believe Joe Budden is one of the hosts. I actually think he got fired. But
I'm not the biggest fan of Joe Budden.
me either. But you know, it's just what it is. But you know, it's just showing that like he was getting paid like a couple of $1 million like per season
to make YouTube videos.
Yeah. Which is technically like a talk show, and they were only getting like 9,000 views like per thing, which is like crazy because like TV for the longest time and still is so focused on ratings. Like it's like ratings is like everything. That's what keeps a show afloat. Like you can be renewed until 2020, but doesn't mean that like they won't cancel your show if your ratings just suck and plummet. Like they will cancel your show.
Well, I think it's about, you know, what drives advertising your way, and also what is the cost. And for Complex to produce, you know, a bunch of shows, they're probably working in the same building out of the same studio in LA or New York, and it doesn't cost them anything to upload it to YouTube. So, you know, whereas the cost of producing television, it's really high just to get something on the air and you know,
different networks.
Right, exactly. So, you know, you cut the cost, and people have different expectations for not just production value, but also like what is the aesthetic of a YouTube talk show. You know, like people can't see where we are right now, but this is, you know, we're not on a big set with lights, and this is a podcast, so it's a little different. But at the same time, you know, these are alternative avenues that people are able to utilize to their advantage if they don't have the same resources that, you know, that Donahue or Oprah have, or had.
And I just want to say real quick, because it's about ladders and life, and we're also talking about broadcasting, and Johnny, you're interested in broadcasting. So yeah, I'm going to tell you real quick my story.
I wanted to ask you because you asked us. So Frank, what would you describe your ladder as, and where's your ladder heading, and how's your ladder taking turns on the way?
Yeah, I would say my ladder is like a river, and there's been a few different, I guess, forks, if you will, that the river has
a couple of spoons.
Where, you know, different paths, and sometimes it's been definitely a winding river, and sometimes it brings you back to the beginning. It'd be kind of a weird river, I guess, but
I think that's called a pond.
Yeah, the pond. So I've always been interested in broadcasting, and ever since I was little, I would also like the first news story I remember was in 1985. January of '86. I was in kindergarten, and it was about the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. And I remember being young and being drawn to the news, though not really sure why, and thinking it was kind of weird, but I was drawn to it, and also thinking like, I'm just a kid, I shouldn't be liking news. This is for grown-ups.
I felt like that with talk shows. I was like, am I a middle-aged woman?
So I would wake up at 5 a.m. to watch an hour of the national news, because the national news would come on at 5 a.m., followed by local news at 6, and then Good Morning America at 7 a.m. And so I'd get to watch a little bit of Good Morning America, but I would have to be getting ready for school at the same time. So I always looked forward to days off when I could stay home and watch Good Morning America. I'd take my homework breaks to watch World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, and I looked forward to Friday nights because I got to stay up late to watch 2020 with Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs. But it was in 6th grade when I decided I wanted to go into broadcasting. And so everyone, like in high school, if you flip through my high school book, you'd see, oh, Frank, we'll see you on, Channel 3 in the future, this type of thing. And I also anchored the morning announcements on TV at my school. We had TV, so it was always, wake up, Cactus High School. So I went to...
Was your high school called Cactus High School?
It was Cactus High School. It was in Arizona, so, cacti, pretty generic name. But
do you guys have some cacti in Arizona? Is that...
Yeah, allegedly, yeah. And I started out as a broadcast journalism major, but I changed it I changed it after 9/11. There were a number of reasons why I changed it. One being, though, that I was definitely curious about the world around me and foreign policy. And I've always been interested in politics. That's also a big reason why I've been into news, is following political stories. So I changed my major to political science with a minor in international relations. I was going to do a double major, poli-sci and journalism, but I was told, oh, you can always write later. So I ended up, after college, being a newspaper reporter. and while working as a newspaper reporter in Arizona. So I didn't go into broadcasting, but I still was in journalism. I was like, I really want to go back and work on my master's. I got my master's in social justice and human rights because I wanted to save the world. All these very non-practical sort of things. So I'm actually very proud of you that you're interested in doing something that you're both interested in, like psychology, as well as something practical like broadcasting. So I think it's so important for young people to do both something that they love and are interested in, but also have a practical thing on the side. Anyways, so ended up doing that. Then moved to Boston in 2011. Was working at Old Navy because I couldn't find a job. Here, a young man came in wearing a CCTV T-shirt. I asked him what that was all about. That was Wilgins, and he was actually a former youth member here at CCTV. So he's like, "Oh, it's CCTV, yeah, go check it out." I did. I became a member. The next month, I joined Neighbor Media, and then a couple weeks after that, the coordinator of Neighbor Media, which is the citizen journalism program here at CCTV, she announced that she was going to be leaving. So I applied to that job, and 4 interviews later, I ended up getting the job, and I've been here for about 5 years now at CCTV. Yeah. The pinnacle, I would say, of my success has been, little known fact, about a year and a half ago, I interviewed for very, very, very highly competitive fellowship, paid fellowship with ABC News in New York. So to get that interview at the same network that I watched growing up as a kid with Peter Jennings and Diane Sawyer and all these people, that was like a big highlight for me. So anyways, so there are ladders and there are rivers and there are all sorts of these things, and sometimes it's not the smoothest path, and sometimes it brings you back to the beginning. But anyways, I think in terms of where your ladder goes, it depends how far you push it. And there are, we were talking about earlier, certain things in the world that will maybe prevent you from reaching the top of that ladder as hard as you work. Yeah.
I think even in my couple of years being on this planet, I had some weird jobs. My first job was working at a bike shop.
At Broadway Bike?
No, at Hub Bicycle that's on Cambridge Street.
Oh, really?
It was on its first location.
Yeah.
And I was working there. And
what did you do for them?
I just, always would run to the basement. My job was basically, to run to the basement and, get parts and, come back up.
And did you get that just because you lived in that neighborhood and you knew them?
Yeah, I was just, I was getting my bike fixed, and I was only, 10, and I was I just need some, money to buy some video games. And...
Oh, don't be getting them in any trouble for the child labor exploitation.
I know. Then I ended up, I hate working at, I hate bikes. It was nothing that I wanted to do with bikes. And then, ended up working at a barbershop, still not yet of age for working actual anything, but I was getting paid $60 a week plus a free haircut, so $80 a week basically. And that was getting me more video games, and that's all I really was caring about for that time. But it was just boring. I was sweeping. The guy really plays really loud Spanish music, and it's fine there when I'm in there for only 30 minutes to get a haircut. But once you're there all day and you're sweeping hair, and there's still Spanish music playing at volume number 2000, it's ridiculous. So then I was old enough to apply for Mayor's program, which is a program here in Cambridge to get young kids
youth employment.
And my first job, I applied for CCTV, my first time ever doing it. Didn't happen. Ended up, they put me into event planning, which that job was basically to make to plan these events for the community to get together and just meet neighbors and stuff like that and stuff, which was really boring to me because I didn't really care about that stuff. And then the next year, applied for CCTV, and then I had summer school, so I wasn't able to do that. So I had to get a job for the afternoon hours, after summer school. And what happened with that was the only place they had open was Just to Start, which was like the worst. That's where like a lot of the kids that like don't know exactly what they want to do, but they just want money, so they put them like all in like Just to Start programs. It was just like,
Did you paint? You painted a lot of fences.
Painting a lot of fences, just like, and I knew a lot of the kids because like they were like kids like from where like around where I lived, but I was not like those kids like at all. So it was just weird. So then I finally applied a third time, and I got a few recommendations put in. Yeah,
people were pretty aggressive about it.
And then I finally got in, and so in no summer school, and I was able to be here, and now I'm here and stuff. But sooner or later, when Jordy's deciding to go on to Alex, I'm taking his job.
That's what I heard today. I heard you were asking about when I'm going to retire.
Yeah.
Well, you need to get a college degree first.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so, but I don't really know if I'm planning on retiring. I mean, I might move on, moving other
on.
Things. Yeah. But yeah, that's great. I think that sounds like a good trajectory.
I'll just do it for like a couple of years
until your career kicks off.
Until the talk show starts.
But that was one thing. Oh, with the ladders, right?
Yeah.
It's like if someone would hand me a talk show, and I admit a talk show, and said, "You have a talk show. You're gonna get $5 million a season. That's it. You're set." And I'll be like, "I'm good." And people don't believe me when I say this. And to me, I'm more of a person. I'm a person like with the journey. I want to climb that ladder. I want to deal with the crazy stuff that has to go with that. Because I look at being a talk show host as like that's the end goal. Like that's the goal where like I'm finally fulfilled. Like that's what I've been always like leading up to. I'm so nervous if I get there too fast. I'm not going to be as satisfied with that job.
You want all this stuff.
You want to really earn it.
Yeah.
I really do want to earn it because
that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's my whole thing. Like with I really do want to climb the ladders and get up there.
If anybody out there has $5 million that they're looking to hand someone to run a talk show, I'm totally open. And I hear Johnny wants my job, so you give me a reason to leave sooner.
That's pretty perfect.
Yeah. Frank, what do you think the weirdest job you've had was, or what was your first job, and what was your weirdest job?
Okay, so first job I actually was did medical records.
I'm just saying this went into corporate ladder structure.
Okay.
So my very first job was at age 14, so I was also underage, and I was making $4.25 an hour.
Wait, you said 14?
Yeah.
Oh, which that's technically...
No, I was
for us.
I was 14. Yeah, 14.
I think it depends by state.
But depends by state.
Yeah, I was age 14, and I was working medical records as a medical records clerk for an ophthalmologist, an eye surgeon. And so I was doing that, and eventually front desk, checking in, doing patient referrals, and billing. And toward the end, I worked there for almost 4 years. Toward the end, they were having me dilate patients' eyes and doing things that a 17-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid should not have been doing at all. So, especially having zero experience. So,
that's insane.
So that was my very first job. I've worked at Gap and I worked at Discover Card for a summer. But my weirdest job was working was my one-day shift at Super Salad. Super Salad is this restaurant where you just kind of go up and you serve yourself salad. And they also have ice cream. But I was in training, so I was supposed to be shadowing this other worker there. And she was not very friendly, and she wasn't really showing me what to do. I had never worked in a restaurant setting before, and Super Salad is one of those restaurants where you go to if you have zero experience. Anyone can do it. You're just basically cleaning off people's plates because you're not really serving them. You do get them refills on drinks. Anyways, having never done it before, I was shadowing her. She wasn't really training me. I was kind of given my tables to take care of, so I was basically winging it. Eventually they ended up telling me to go clean the restroom, and of course they didn't tell me how to clean the bathroom, so I cleaned it the way my mom would want it cleaned, spick and span, so I spent probably a good long while cleaning it because no one told me exactly how to go about cleaning, what the expectations were. The next day I got a phone call from my manager, and she told me that I was no longer needed, that they didn't want me coming back again for my next shift. and she used the quote, and this is exact words she said. She said, "You are not up to par with the super salad way." And so, not up to par with the super salad way, but again, going back to ladders, I went on to become a nationally recognized award-winning multimedia journalist. So that's okay. Sometimes things don't work out.
Yeah, just take that salad and put it in your ice cream.
Yeah.
Were they mad at you because you cleaned the bathroom too well, or you didn't clean it well enough, or you spent too long cleaning it?
I think I spent too long cleaning it, but again, I was never told what the expectations were. So, and I did try to argue, that I wasn't properly trained, and the manager said, I've been in this business too long. I know from day one if it's going to work out or not. But again, it's training, so they did fail on their part to train me. But that's just one of those stories that's fun to tell.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
What's funny, my first job was also at an age that I should not have been working. I think I was like 12 or 13. I had a family friend who did like home renovation stuff. They would like gut houses and then rebuild them, and I would go at the end of the day when I got home from school. I'd go home, I'd walk my dog, and then they were usually working on houses in my neighborhood, and I'd walk down to whatever the job site was, and I would sweep. And I would sweep up the house every day after they were done working. And then I got this cool thing that was like a big magnet on wheels, and you just had to push it along the outside of the house, and all of the nails and screws and little metal pieces that had fallen down while they were ripping stuff out and building, it would all get stuck to the magnet. So I would just spend, an hour, whatever, cleaning up, and then I'd hang out with all of the guys. They're getting ready to go home. They'd all be drinking beer on the back of the truck, and they'd give me like a Diet Coke or something. I felt like the coolest person ever. And I think I was getting paid I don't even remember what it was, like $20 a week, and I would work 2 days a week or something stupid like that. But and at that point in time, I'd never had like a dream job the way you guys have, but I've had many strange and sometimes unfortunate positions of employment along my ladder. I don't know if I've had a job that stands out in particular. I've had a few jobs that have been unfortunate in the things that I've had to do while in them. While you were talking, I was trying to think about what would I classify as my like weirdest job. Yeah. I don't really know. I worked as a lifeguard for a while. I think I met Johnny when he was a little kid. I was a lifeguard in East Cambridge, and there's a lot of parts of that job that were not too ideal.
Kids are.
Well, the kids were fine.
You said you were fine with
the adults. People do some things at age just what you think like you really should not do that, or you should know not to do that, and like I don't know. I don't need to go into too graphic of details. The one thing I will always remember about that job, periodically someone would have to put on goggles, put on rubber gloves, dive to the bottom of the deep end, and clear the filter at the bottom of the pool of all of the hair, people hair, weave, little bits of debris. And if you didn't pull it out by hand, it would dislodge itself, and it would just float around the pool, and it would look like a dead animal. It was just kind of like a tumbleweave, I think is what you would call it. Tumbleweave. And but that was one of them. And in college I had a job. My junior and senior year of college, I worked for the machine shop that was part of the engineering department at the school that I went to. So the machine shop is where they do like custom fabrication of things. So if you have a lab and you're going to be doing an experiment, you need a particular type of nozzle and you don't have it or whatever, they can build it for you. We also oversaw all of the facilities and operations for the engineering building, so all of the labs and classrooms. In that building, though, in the basement, there were a couple of rooms that were pretty much not used, and so we would. There wasn't a lot of supervision in this position, and one of the rooms was an emptied out. I think it was a water tank originally. I really hope it wasn't something toxic, because we used to go in it and just climb down and hang out, and it was like a very small enclosed space where no one could find you, but everyone would assume you were just doing something, you were really busy. So like three of us would just go hang out in this water tank. There was one room that you couldn't go into because of radioactive waste that you'd be exposed to. And so we never went in the room, but we would like look and see what it looked like, and it was kind of crazy. And then there was another room that we had slowly been accumulating furniture, and we built a wall out of couches that you couldn't see past. So if you ever went into this room, you would have thought this room was just stacked with furniture, so you wouldn't even bother going in. But there was a way to go through the couches, and when you came out on the other side, we had built ourselves sort of like a lounge using all of the furniture that people had thrown away from the classrooms and other areas in the building. This was like in the storage space. So you'd walk in, it looked like a normal storage space filled from floor to ceiling, but really in the back half there was an area that was maybe like 10 by 20 that was open and sort of like built around with stacked furniture, and all the nicest pieces of furniture we'd figure out how to get in there and sort of take it over. So we had our little hideout spot, and that was like, yeah, doing that job was great because it was pretty much the main objective every day was to figure out how to do the least but look like you did the most. And I learned that from the people who had been working there, who were had been there for 20, 30 years. I think that when you work in for a university or something like that, you kind of gain that mentality after a while. Just do what you need and then fly under the radar. But other than that, I mean, I've just washed dishes, worked construction, worked at a pool, worked at a bookstore, worked here. I
think what I learned was working at CCTV is just you guys do this like thing of just like popping up projects on us like we don't know in advance of time, which I think makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure if you guys mean to do it or Jordy. I'm not sure if you mean to.
Well, no, we don't mean to in a mean way or a bad way.
I think it's good, like, if you are going to go into media production or if you're working for, like, say, a bigger company and out in like the really big, like, media, like, places or whatever, sometimes you're not going to know, like, what your next project is going to be. Like, they might just, like, be like, here, you need to get this done. So I think with that, I like the preparedness for that, but it stresses the hell out of me. I want to know, like, what the next project is. But I think everyone kind of, most people pull their weight around. I think it definitely shows, like, in how well the videos are done. Like, at the end, like, you can slack off all you want. I feel like as CCTV, like, you can slack off to a point. Like, there's a way to, I know it's kind of awkward saying it right here.
We trust people to do their work, so sometimes people don't do their work.
So some people don't do their work.
Yeah.
But it definitely will show, like, once it gets, like, down to, like, the end of, like, when there's deadlines, it's going to show, like, how much your video's done, how well it's done, like, if it's well thought out. So there's a lot of places where you can slack off, but you really don't want to. So it's kind of a whole...
It's kind of a nice metaphor for this whole conversation, too. I mean, in life in general. And in high school, like, I think you're probably experiencing this as a junior, especially right now. But, you get out of things what you put into them. And yeah, we can't change everybody's work ethic and their accountability in a single program at CCTV. People come to us for 2.5 hours, 3 days out of the week for 13 weeks. Well, sure, but you also have a lot of other stuff that you at this point that you need to focus on in life. But regardless, what I'm saying is that's 7.5 hours out of a week, and so how many hours are you being influenced by other things? And so, if you came to CCTV and said, I want to be a talk show host, and you signed up for the youth program and started a podcast and made a bunch of videos like what you've been doing recently, you're using those resources to your advantage. But I don't expect everyone to, find the same value. But at the same time, like, that translates to everything. I have jobs that I'm asked to do or tasks that I do here or things that I find myself doing in life, and I just think, like, why am I doing this? This isn't helping me at all, and this is pointless, and this is a waste of time. But I think a true skill is being able to find a way to make things relevant to yourself or find a way to take something positive from any experience. And if you are given an assignment in school or if you're given a task at work that, like, you really don't like or you really think is dumb, what is it that you can pull from that you can benefit from? You know, even if that's just like you exercising in being focused or time management. I mean, it could be as broad as that, or it could be like right now I'm working on a video that's been really frustrating me because the process in order to create the content rather than the actual video itself has been really difficult, finding the information I need. But I'm using this as an opportunity to really experiment with some different types of animation that I've been wanting to do, but I haven't had the time. So it's like you find a way to create a learning experience for yourself if you want to learn. And so I think, yeah, you can live your life comfortably skating by. And there are definitely periods of my life where I look back and I go, I was coasting, you know, and I did what I needed to do to pay my rent and buy my groceries. But what did I really accomplish? Right. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But I think when you have something you're working towards, like a dream, like being a broadcast journalist or being a talk show host, or when you have something just in general that you want to really learn, it makes that experience that's not always great, it just makes it a lot more valuable, and it makes it easier to deal with the nonsense. And you know, like high school is, I think, the greatest lesson you can learn in high school is how to make it useful. You know, I don't think a lot of high school feels relevant and useful. I remember hating the fact that I couldn't choose what I was learning. Yeah. And I had to write papers about things that I was just like, this is so dumb. And I had to read books that I was like, nobody even cares about Charles Dickens. Why are we reading this? And I still think that. No offense to people who like Charles Dickens, but you know, it's like there are things that I was reading on my own that I was like, why can't I read this? Right. But what I ended up learning was how to make connections to those things, to make myself care, how to read a book that was super boring, but find the part of the history of that book that was interesting. And then, you know, like Johnny, I think I used the example of boring books earlier today when we were talking about other stuff, school uniforms we were talking about. And I was saying I don't think there's value in telling someone, oh, you'll just have to learn how to read boring books because you'll do it in college. I think that's wrong, because I think you shouldn't have to read boring books at all, even in college. But at the same time, if you can read a boring book and you can find a way to make it exciting for you, or you can do a job that's mindless and find a way to make it fun and important, like it's just going to equip you for a broader variety of ladders. Yep. You know, because you might wake up one day and you're on a totally different ladder than you were on the day before.
That's true. Step by step.
Yes.
Like, I didn't know I wanted to be a therapist until... Because I do want to be talk show, so I do want to do that. But I didn't know I wanted to be a therapist until, like, maybe, like, just a year ago. Like, just realizing the lack of, like, male therapists in the, like, therapy, like, world. And, like, black, like, people. Like, you know, just in there in general. Mm-hmm. It's tough. So, and also, like, I find... You can tell when you're a patient if your therapist has been to therapy before, like as a child, like been in sitting in your position before. And it's not a lot in that case. And it's hard. And I've been in therapy since I was 6. Kind of, my girl tried to avoid the whole, like, me having, like, a breakdown, randomly realizing, like, oh, my mother, like, died. Like, so she tried to avoid that, like, before any of that happened. So she's like, okay, I'm sticking you in therapy, like, 3 months after, you know, this all happens. And I've been in therapy ever since. I've been in there for 11 years now. So it's like, you know, I know what I can bring to the table. And I know I can excel at a lot of different things. I can excel at being a teacher. I can excel at being a talk show host. I can excel, you know, but it's picking the things that you really want to do. Because I think about it, and I sometimes stay up, like, all night because my brain is just running. Because I'm like, am I, like, wasting my time working at CCTV, making these videos, you know, doing Generation Savage, that possibly I won't be a talk show host or make an income off of doing this, like, because also things come down to, like, the bottom dollar at a lot of the times, you know. And should I become a teacher? Should I become a therapist? Should I do more practical things that have a job at the end of my education career where it's guaranteed that I will pretty much have a job, you know? So that was something I really had to keep thinking about and keeping that in mind the whole time. but I want to keep pushing for, being that talk show host, and I also love the reaction. Like, the first time I told Jordy that, I was like, I want to be a talk show host. He's like, huh? He's like,
it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense, and it was just like the look on your face was like, oh, you don't hear that a lot. Like, you're like, oh,
yeah.
Like, and that's what that's the look that's like on everyone's face, and I'm like, I want to be a talk show host, and I'm like, huh? And I just like,
well, I think we should do another. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, Generation Savage goes for another 10 years, but 10 years from now, when we're at 27, 37, and 37.
37 again.
27, 37, 37. Well, we should do another episode of this, and we'll really see, because at that point, Johnny might be a talk show host, he might be a tomato farmer, and who knows where I'll be, and hopefully Frank's.
If I become a talk show host, I would host a huge event for CCTV.
That would be great too.
And I will donate a crazy amount of money to CCTV.
We're gonna get that in writing before you leave.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, keep moving forward. Right?
Keep climbing your ladder.
Keep climbing ladders. Cool.
But I'm gonna end this podcast.
Yeah.
Right here, because I'm getting very tired. And
Great.
my brain is not functioning anymore. So,
This is a lot. This is a lot of good advice.
Yeah. So this has been a Kickback production, and this has been a very savage generation time.
Did we say anything? Is there like a cool
You can say
catchphrase?
bye.
Okay. See ya.
See you.